Was Stargate Universe really that bad? Welcome to SciTrek, your sci-fi TV and movie channel. Now, I originally scripted this video. I wrote an entire post, read it out on camera, and it just sounded so robotic and fake that I'm just going to wing this and I'm going to tell you my true and honest opinions about why I think Stargate Universe is actually a masterpiece. It's fantastic. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll agree with me.
Wait, what? Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, Matt, but come on. I doubt it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. So on the back of the final season of Stargate SG-1 and the final season of Stargate Atlantis, Stargate Universe was born. And when it came out, it was met with a lot of critical reception. Because when the show came out, it also had a very noticeable visual change. It was a lot darker, it was a lot grittier, and it also had a much younger cast. Now, a lot of people didn't like the visual change, it didn't like the overall look and feel of the show because it was very different to how SG-1 or Atlantis was usually filmed. There was a lot of handheld camera movements, it was noticeably darker, and there were even things like sex scenes which had never been present before in any Stargate show. It was very apparent that this new Stargate show was very much tailored to a much younger audience. But I think it was actually really ahead of its time in terms of production value, production quality, and even the stories that it told. Now, speaking of the visual change that Stargate Universe brought, being much darker and much grittier, it did match the overall feel of the actual series as a whole. It was a very dark show. It was a show that was basically born out of the very idea of what would happen if a bunch of people who were just working on a science project found themselves in an impossible situation where they couldn't return home. How would they react? How would they adapt? And how would they work together to achieve their goals? The show very much focused on the interpersonal relationships between the crew and really highlighted their struggles. Because the crew of the Destiny didn't have their own personal space, they were all very confined. Little situations that popped up that would just be a mild inconvenience to you and me were actually blown way out of proportion. And that was something I really enjoyed, seeing how these people reacted to the situation they were in. Now that's something I want to explore because the change of pace, the visual change, the much younger cast, it had an overall different feel to any Stargate show that came before it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Every week we tuned in, we wanted to see who was going to break, who was going to step up to the plate, and who was going to be the next villain. Because Stargate Universe didn't really have a villain. That's the beauty of it. It didn't have the Goa'uld, it didn't have the Ori or the replicators. The villain was us. It was how we reacted to the situation that we are in. What would you do? Someone is going to become the villain. Whether they want to or not, the situation you're in, you're going to adapt. And that change in circumstance can really lead a person to become what we would call the villain. Now, obviously, Stargate SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis did explore interpersonal relationships. I mean, we had Jack and Sam from SG-1. Will they, won't they? The same kind of thing with Taylor and Shepard in Atlantis. But it was expanded upon in Universe. It wasn't just romantic relationships that we saw. We saw rivalries. We saw the fear. We saw people scared for their lives. Now, a lot of people criticise Stargate Universe in the fact that it was a very slow show. Not a lot happened in the first season, and that's something I can agree with. But I believe it was doing a lot of world building. It was exploring the very idea that these people shouldn't be in this situation, but they are, and they're trying to do their best. We got a much clearer picture of what makes Rosh tick. We saw Eli grow as a person. And we even had characters like Sergeant Greer, who was in jail for all intents and purposes before Icarus blew up, adapt to a situation where he had to step up. He had to forget the fact that he was in jail and try and become a leader. So for me, the very first season of Stargate Universe was very much, let's put these people in a situation they can't get out of. Let's see how they react and adapt to this situation, and then we'll take the story on from there. And they did do that in Season 2. It got a lot more action-orientated in Season 2. There were more high stakes, and people who got that far when watching it actually agreed that Season 2 was way better. But it gets a lot of flack just because the first season was very slow. And this is why I think Universe was very much ahead of its time. Now, when you ever look at other shows that have been successful, a lot of them had really slow starts. Take a look at Breaking Bad, for example. The first couple of seasons were really, really slow because they were building the world. They were showing you the relationships between the characters, showing the changes that would gradually happen, and eventually they became like one of the best TV shows of all time. I honestly do believe that if they gave Universe a chance, they greenlit it for a third and possibly a fourth season, it would have done way better for that very reason. If Stargate Universe had come out today and it was positioned alongside shows like The Expanse or The Mandalorian and things like that, it would just be commonplace. The show, how it was filmed, how it was framed, things like that, is very, very much how shows are made today. So in that regard, SGU was ahead of its time. I just don't think audiences were ready for it. People wanted a 6th season of Stargate Atlantis. I also wanted a 6th season, but Stargate Universe was a completely different show, and I honestly don't believe it deserved all the hate that it got. But what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you are new to the YouTube channel, make sure you hit subscribe and press the bell notification so you don't miss a single video. And also, whilst you're down there, consider becoming a fully fledged SciTrek member. Hit the join button down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.